Tonight we're going to talk about major accomplishments, achievements, and contributions of the Islamic empires, meaning the Abbasid and Umayyad empires. Some of the major mosques and palaces include Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock was built in 691 by the Umayyad dynasty. It's believed to be on the site of Solomon's grave, or possibly Herod's temple. Think from your reading why these sites might be important. You're going to need to pause and use your textbook to answer the question, what purpose did the Dome of the Rock serve? Here's closer up detail of Dome of the Rock. Islamic temples and palaces are decorated with Arabic writing from the Quran. It is blasphemy in Islam to use images of God, of Muhammad, because they were seen as close to idol worship, which is exactly what Muhammad was trying to move away from. So instead, as decoration, we see Arabic writing used and passages from the Quran. Here is an Umayyad mosque built in Damascus in 709. Remember that the Umayyads moved the capital of their empire to Damascus, which is in modern-day Syria. You'll notice some of the designs that are used, the columns. This is very typical of Umayyad architecture. It's often in the shape of a rectangle with a courtyard in the middle. Very ornate decoration for the time, and very small windows. This Umayyad mosque is called the Great Mosque. It is in Cordoba, Spain. You should look on the map in your book to see where Cordoba is, especially in relationship to Damascus. After the Abbasids took over and took control of the Islamic Empire, the Umayyad prince Abd al-Rahman was able to escape the Abbasid persecution and fled to Spain, where he established a caliphate and built this mosque. Notice the arch, round arches, stripes. This architecture is known as Moorish architecture. Moors are the term used to describe Arabs in Andalusia or southern Spain. Other Islamic achievements include the study of Persian literature. So especially the Abbasids during their golden age greatly valued education and translated a lot of works. So these great works of Persia were taken and taught and translated into Arabic. More accomplishments include taking the algebraic and geometric theories of the Greeks, working with them and actually making them better, correcting them. In their spread, the Muslims were able to capture and preserve a lot of the works of the Greeks that would have been lost when Rome fell, if it were not for our Islamic empires. Some of these advancements include the use of sine, cosine, tangent. You might be familiar with some of these ideas from math class. If not, I'm sure you'll study them later this year. As far as science goes, the Muslims created the objective experiment, so creating a goal for your experiment, designing the experiment. Think of creating a hypothesis, testing that hypothesis. They also classified material into 3 categories. They said all things were either animal, vegetable, or mineral. Seen here is a painting. Take a minute and think about what you see. And then I'll tell you that the man sitting in the chair with a turban is actually Aristotle. And what he is holding is a model of a planet. So this is a great example of syncretism because we have Arabic writing. Aristotle actually has the appearance of being Arab. And this was a text used in Middle Eastern schools. So this shows that that our Islamic empires were able to take the works of the Greeks and adopt them as their own. They translated the works of Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and adopted the same thinkings. So very education forward. You need to look in your book to find three items manufactured in the Islamic Empire, as well as the 2 advances in medicine. Except that I'm giving you some of the answers now. The Muslims were also able to manufacture steel for swords, which made their weapons much stronger than the wood weapons of their opponents. That's what we meant when we said that they had military prowess over the Persians and the Byzantines. They created medical encyclopedias, so doctors were actually able to look at symptoms and have more of a universal way of defining different illnesses and what was going on. So that was a good advancement for medicine. The Muslims also preserved Western culture as Europe became decentralized. Especially after Rome fell, our value of philosophy and learning went out the window. Instead, people were simply fighting to survive and fighting for power. So it's actually thanks to the Muslims that our works of Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, mathematical advancements, all were preserved and saved. Otherwise, they may have been lost. These works were taken to the Middle East and translated into Arabic. And during later wars, Europeans found their own heritage in Islamic libraries. So hint, hint, the Crusades. But the Europeans lose all this work for a time during the Middle Ages. And then during these later wars, the Europeans rediscover their learning and heritage. And that will actually lead to the beginning of Unit 3, when Europe rises once again. So the Islamic civilizations use gold and silver coins as their common currency. And take a minute and decide which previous civilization, based on our discussion so far, seems to have most widely influenced the Islamic empires, and then support your answer. We're going to skip ahead. The video is on the next slide. But here we have a picture of the House of Wisdom during the Abbasid Golden Age. A university named the House of Wisdom was established in Baghdad, because again, remember the Abbasids moved the capital back to Baghdad. And so in this university, people studied, or here you can see people studying astronomy, which based off the works of Aristotle. So they're not studying math, they're actually studying astronomy. You'll notice in the bottom corner, there's someone with an Earth and planets. And so they're using physics to study astronomy. So Baghdad becomes the major center of cultural learning. Major advancements in the sciences happen. We have astronomy and math advancing. They adopt the Indian numerals, and medical encyclopedias are created. Again, they translate the works of ancients from Greek philosophy, like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. And without Muslim scholars, again, the ideas of these philosophers would have been lost when Rome fell. So again, this is known as the House of Wisdom. So interesting to think about religions today and the issues that religions have with science, and to look back at the Abbasid dynasty and how open they were to science and education. Go ahead and watch the video. It's the Islamic accomplishments video, and answer the 2 questions. So during the Abbasid Golden Age, there were also major building projects completed. The first universities were completed. There was relative internal peace and toleration of other religious customs. So again, remember that our people of the book, Jews and Christians, were simply made to pay a tax, but were free to practice their religion. And another reminder that throughout history, we'll see the trend that golden ages occur when there is peace. So when people don't have to worry about feeding themselves or fighting for their lives, they turn their attention towards academics, making up new inventions, etc. So that's when our golden ages happen, is when an empire is relatively stable, has a strong military, etc. There's also production of steel and swords, which makes the armies dominant, which we mentioned before, and that is the reason for the successful spread of our Islamic empires. You can watch this video now. Again, there's a time there, suggested time, from 4 minutes and 58 seconds to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. But you're free to watch the whole thing. The rest of the series can be watched online for more in-depth info. If you Google Islam, Empire of Reason, you might find it interesting. Also, you could Google Islam, Empire of Faith, and it's another great documentary to help you understand the expansion and beliefs of Islam. Could be a great study tool. You can stop there. You do not need to go on to the generalization overview. We will go over that tomorrow. Thank you. And you should write down any questions you have about Islam and the Islamic empires for tomorrow.